want to talk today about a Eucharistic ministers course we're having in the parish for people who wish to be Eucharistic ministers. And we only have 4 people at the moment, but maybe through this video, people who see the video, other people might come forward. But 4 people is a good group to have. And the 4 of them put themselves forward and asked me and requested, could they be Eucharistic ministers, which is great. They felt that God was calling them to do this. So what is a minister of the Eucharist? Well, one of the jobs that a minister of the Eucharist does is that at Holy Communion, especially on a Sunday Mass or a Mass at the weekend, a Mass on a Saturday evening, at those Masses, when the crowd is fairly big, they come and help to give communion with the priest. Now, there's more to it than that. There's more to being a Eucharistic minister than just giving out Holy Communion. There are some other things that they do as well. And the last ones I trained were also willing to give communion to people who are sick, to go around to people in the parish, give Holy Communion to those people who normally cannot come out, who are, as we say, infirm, they're housebound, so they're confined to their houses because of their old age, because of not being well. So those ministers come to them, maybe ring them up beforehand to say they're coming, and then say certain prayers with them, talk to them, visit them, and then give them communion. So another thing that Eucharistic ministers are willing to do, the last ones we had, and these ones will be as well, they will be willing to give communion to the dying. In the past, the priest was always sent for when somebody was dying, and that still applies today. People will phone me up and say, oh, my mother is dying, somebody in the house is dying, or else a neighbour is dying or something. Will you come and say prayers? Now, the priest at that stage did what was called the last rites. And the last rites would consist of confession, if they were able to go to confession, if they were able to speak. If they weren't able to speak, the priest would just give them absolution. Then the anointing of the sick, the person would be anointed with the oil of the anointing, the oil of the sick, and also the person would be given Holy Communion. That was the last thing that was given to them. It was known as viaticum, food for the journey to the next life. Now, of course, because of the shortage of priests, we are experiencing a great shortage of priests in Ireland and in Europe generally as well. Often a priest is not available. For example, if I was on holidays, or I've spent a number of times in hospital recently as well, if I was in hospital or on holidays or gone away for a day or whatever, if I wasn't available, in other words, and somebody began to die, the Eucharistic ministers who are willing to bring communion to the dying would come and give communion to the dying person. And we're hoping to make people more aware of that, and that's one of the purposes of this video, is to make everyone aware of that is what will happen when a priest isn't available. Now, of course, if the priest is available, he goes because the Eucharistic minister is not able to hear somebody's confession, nor are they able to anoint the person either. But of course, when there isn't a priest, they can give communion, which is something very important to give it to somebody who's dying. So a Eucharistic minister, that's the word that's used. Sometimes the term that's used is an extraordinary minister of the Eucharist. Now, a minister is a special thing, to be able to minister to people. It's a ministry. And of course, to minister is really to help somebody in their life, to help them in their spiritual life as well. So a Eucharistic minister is far more than a person who just gives out Holy Communion. There are also people who learn more about the Eucharist, learn more about the Mass, and in the course that we'll be doing with them, they will learn more about that. And they're also encouraged, and usually this does happen for them, they're encouraged to love the Mass, to actually come to love the Mass. They're encouraged as much as possible to go to Mass often, not just maybe at the weekend, but also possibly during the weekdays as well. And to pray in the church. And as we know, we all know this, that in the church, the Blessed Sacrament, the Holy Communion, is there in the tabernacle, and there's a sanctuary lamp to tell us that the Blessed Sacrament is present. We call that the real presence. So Jesus is there, and people are encouraged to pray in the church, to say prayers in the church. and to be there, even if there's no Mass there, they can still visit Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament, just like people visit each other in their houses. And another role that the Eucharistic ministers have as well is that in our parish we have what's called Eucharistic adoration. So for 1 hour every week, most of the weeks of the year, there is 1 hour when the Blessed Sacrament, the Holy Communion, is put up on the altar in a special container known as a monstrance. People pray there for an hour and sometimes for a bit longer. So usually a Eucharistic minister will open the tabernacle with the tabernacle key, take out the Blessed Sacrament, take out the communion, put it into this monstrance, and then candles will be lit, and sometimes a group of people gather for this Eucharistic adoration. It's not just individual, but a number of people gather to do that. Sometimes they pray prayers out loud like the Rosary and Divine Mercy or whatever, but there's also periods of silence where they just sit there and pray. But even if there isn't Eucharistic adoration, anybody can go to the church at any time, or to any church. Anybody can go anywhere. There is a church, and usually in the tabernacle the communion is there, which means that Jesus is present there. He's really present. We call that the real presence. So go to the church, pray there. Any church, if you're passing by a church and you have time, you're encouraged to go in and pray. And another role that the Eucharistic ministers have as well is that in a place like Knock, or a place where there might be a lot of people, we'll say if you attend a funeral somewhere in Ballina or Castlebar or anywhere, a very big funeral where there's a whole lot of people, big crowds of people turn up to certain funerals, and of course if there's a big crowd of people, the priest may need help to give communion to everyone, and there may not be other priests there because priests are so stretched now they mightn't be able to go to those funerals like they did in the past. So then the priest needs somebody to distribute communion, and he will ask. The priest will say, are there any Eucharistic ministers present in the congregation to help me give out communion? And of course, once the Eucharistic ministers are trained to give out communion in Killassa and Callow, they can do it anywhere. They can do it anywhere in the world. And that means also if you go on holidays, I know people go to Portugal and they go to Spain on holidays. They go to all kinds of other countries. They go to the States, they go to England, they go to France, they go to Italy, they go to many other places on holidays. A lot of people now go to Australia to see their sons and daughters out there. Anywhere you go on holidays, if you go to Mass and the priest needs somebody to distribute communion, you can do that once you're a Eucharistic minister. So we're very glad, we're very happy that people are willing to become Eucharistic ministers. And because there are some people in the parish doing it for maybe over 20 years, maybe more than 20 years I think now. And some of these I know probably would like to stop doing it now because they've done it for years. But we need new people to replace them. So thank God we'll have these 4 new people to do that. And their names will become known and you'll be receiving communion from them in the future. So we just say thanks to them. And thanks to those who will be giving the course as well. So thanks very much, and again Happy New Year to everybody who will be watching this video. Thank you.